In this video, we're going to take a look at a red ink by KWZ, Thief's Red. Now, as always, there's timestamps down below so you can skip around, but if you've got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. Also, down in the description is a link to the red ink playlist, so if you want to see more of them, you can find that there. I'm an ink guy. Let's get into the first writing sample done on 90 GSM Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. We have no feather, no spread, no shading in any of the writing, while the extra fine is lighter than the medium, and the medium's just a hair lighter than the stub. Extra fine took 14 seconds to dry, while the medium took 17. Scrubby for both give no color variation, we get no shading in the writing, and the smear test you could probably recover if you smeared while you were writing. To have a range of experience with this ink, all of the writing samples are done with a Jinhao 159 with a 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a medium, and a Jinhao X750 with an extra fine. Then a TWSBI Vac Mini with a fine nib was inked up, used for a day, and used to take the notes for this video. The next writing sample is done on 52 GSM Tomoe River. No bleeding, minor ghosting, very thin paper. No feather, no spread, no shading for the stub, no shading for the medium. Some darker spots do show themselves with the extra fine. The extra fine is lighter than the medium, and the medium slightly, just a hair lighter than the stub. The extra fine took 21 seconds to dry, while the medium took 26. Scrubby for both give no color variation, but the extra fine does have that very light seasoning of darker spots. The smear test says you could not recover if you smeared while you were writing. I agree with Vita. There's a lot to learn by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. A line of ink is put down, then it's put in the water for 10 to 15 seconds, and we see a true prime red. It is pushing its way up away from where the water was, gathering at the top. No signs of any kind of resistance when we look at the other one where it was allowed to dry for 10 minutes. I say no signs because that faint line at the bottom, I'm not expecting it to hold out, but we see nothing mixed here, just a true red, which usually they don't shade a whole lot. The next writing sample was done on 80 GSM Rhodia dot pad. No bleeding, no ghosting. No feather, no spread, no shading whatsoever. However, the extra fine is lighter than the medium, and the medium, same tone as the stub. The extra fine took 16 seconds to dry, while the medium took 20. Scrubby for both give no color variation, and there's none in the writing, in the smear test you probably can't recover if you smear while you're writing. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink could be expected to perform on a page, and more importantly, how hard could it be to clean from your pen. The smear is allowed to dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, that capital H has a lot of blowout, but so does the hump of the lowercase h. Now, while I do think this is a decent red, I'm not sure that I would use this in a note-taking situation, because I'm very risk-averse. That combined with what I saw in the chromatography and what we're going to see here with water says I wouldn't use it. Water is completely reactivating and lifting this off the paper, which is all that it took to get it out of my pen. Now the pen flush does everything that water does. It actually looks like it did a little bit less, but that was me with the paper towel kind of putting some of the ink back onto the paper. 1/3 bleach solution, you're not going to need it, but it does completely obliterate this ink. The next writing sample is done on yellow Rhodia paper. We do this not to look at any kind of performance change, but really to look at tone variation. And this is a very opaque ink. You see that it is completely unaffected having that yellow paper underneath. Now this can be very important in that professional environment because you want your reds to be red. And this is, without a doubt, red. For the inks tested, the average viscosity was 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. KWZ's Thief's Red has a viscosity of 2.32, so it's normal. The next writing sample is done on life paper. No bleeding, no ghosting, no feathering, no spreading, no shading, But tone variation, the extra fine is lighter than the medium, and the medium is the same tone as the stub. Really consistent, nice looking ink here. The extra fine took 13 seconds to dry. The medium took 18 seconds to dry. The scrubbies gave no color variation. The writings had no shading. The smear test you could not recover if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average dry time was 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. KWZ's Thief's Red has an average dry time of 19 seconds, making it normal. The last writing sample is done on Levenger paper. No bleeding, no ghosting. No feather, no spread, no shading in any of the writing, but we do get some tone variation. Now the stub and the medium are the same tone, but the extra fine is just a little bit lighter. The extra fine took 8 seconds to dry, while the medium took 11. The scrubby for both give no color variation. We got no shading in that writing. And the smear test you could not recover if you smeared while you were writing. Instead of finding inks that look like KWZ's Thief's Red, I'd prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. Now I like putting green with red, and I chose a green from Papier Plume, Moss Green. Now if you'd prefer a different complement color, then down in the description are links to those playlists. So what do I think of KWZ's Thief's Red? A good standard red. There's no real shading and a very little tone variation by pen. It is a good and bright red, but for a whole page of writing, it can kind of be eye-burning if it's just a whole page of this red. So what nib and pen are going to give the best writing experience with this ink? Well, it's so boring and predictable in its performance that I don't think it matters what pen you choose. It only gives a slight bit of tone variation by pen. So really, dealer's choice, because it always looks good. I hope you got something out of this video, and in the next video, we're going to take a look at Ackerman's number 15.